Today I want to ponder the question and consider the significance of what if the biggest barrier to stronger communication, better leadership, stronger relationships, and healthier workplaces isn't a lack of skill, but rather the way we communicate. Research from the University of Massachusetts Global revealed that more than 74% of both workers and executives want to discover a better way to develop both personal and professional, better ways to communicate and improve their engagement skills both in the office at work and within the walls at home. At the same time, workplace research from my friends at Visier revealed that 67% of working professionals and executives rank spending quality time with both their family and friends as their top personal ambition to aspire to. However, there still seems to be a persistent and lagging ability for people to build the trust, the connection, and understanding needing to make those ambitions a reality. In this episode this week, I had the privilege of sitting down with my friend Katherine Winter Sellery. She is a 3-time TEDx speaker, leadership and communications expert, an entrepreneur, and the founder of Conscious Parenting Revolution and BalanceWork-Life. Her journey is an international one, including international business entrepreneurship, mediation, and the study of human behavior. From spending some time in negotiating some complex business deals deep in the heart of Hong Kong and China, while also helping organizations navigate difficult workplace conversations here at home. She spent decades navigating and studying what causes communication to break down and what it takes to restore both trust and communication, while also taking a heart-centered and collaborative approach. She draws upon her 3 R's framework, which includes retaliation, rebellion, and resistance. She explains why people react defensively when they feel unheard, misunderstood, or controlled. She shares practical strategies which leaders, executives, parents, educators, and entrepreneurs can use to transform conflict into productive dialogue, create psychological safety inside organizations, and foster stronger relationships. And she joined me this week to tell me more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program.
I'm ready.
Absolutely. I'm super excited to talk to you today all about communication, my friend. It's great to see you, and happy Wednesday to you.
Thank you. So good to be here. Happy Wednesday to you too.
Absolutely. So, Catherine, I wanted to start by asking you, how can we use effective communication to resolve conflicts, both at work and at home? My friend, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah. So, to me, we have to understand and have an agreement about what does it mean to be effective. So, I guess that would be a good place for us to start because there are lots of ways to communicate. Obviously, there are really aggressive approaches to communication, and there's the world of being more assertive. So, I guess I would say that when you're able to communicate what's going on for you with the I message, right? As in the communication field, we call it, I'm feeling because I need. I have this feeling. I'm not blaming you on for my feelings that I have that are arising, but I do have some feelings. I'm anxious, I'm worried, I'm upset, whatever the feeling is. And I'm just paying attention to my feelings, tying them back to my needs. What's the need of mine that's not being met, that's giving rise to the feeling? And I was hoping that we could talk about the situation so that maybe there's a way that you could help me out so that I could feel differently because I'd really appreciate us working together. So, this is sort of the approach that I would recommend taking. It's one where we're owning the problem, if you want to look at it that way. There's something going on between us. I would like to talk about that something. And the best way for me to do it is to be considerate of the fact that you may not know whatever your behavior is causing me a problem. So if I make that, let's call it a generous assumption that you're just going about life, you do you, and it just so happens that in the process of you do you, something about the way you're being is getting in the way of me meeting my needs. And so I was just wondering if you would be considerate for us to have a conversation about this thing, whatever the thing is. So it's that approach. It's a conversation where I'm owning the problem. I'm talking about it like I have a problem, not you're a problem. That there's something that I want to share with you. And I'm hoping that maybe if I share it, that you'll be understanding of what's going on for me. And out of consideration to help me meet my needs, because I'm the one who has a problem, you'd be willing to entertain potentially meeting your needs in a different way. And that would be a nice approach for us to have a conversation so that you don't just hang up the phone on me because I start out by making it about you.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. And Catherine, I also wanted to ask you about collaborative communication within the workplace because I'm someone who believes that no matter how many degrees you have on a wall or how many steps you climb on the corporate ladder, you can always learn something from somebody else. So talk to me about the importance of collaborative communication at work, my friend, and your
Yeah,
thoughts behind that concept as well.
absolutely. So, I mean, if we just continue along, the same lines as what we were talking about, what would be effective, what would be ineffective in terms of conflict resolution, the same thing applies with regard to now I'm asking you essentially to collaborate with me if you've understood what I've just shared with you, so that potentially there could be between the two of us, me having an opportunity to understand what's going on for you, that this is why, or this is your chosen modality for meeting your needs. And if there's a chance for us to collaborate on different ways for both you and I to be able to meet both of our needs, then we're just really chatting about something in a very collegial way about me not making any assumptions about knowing how you need to meet your needs or you trying to figure out me and how I would meet mine because I wouldn't know about you really. I need to be considerate enough to ask for you to share and give me a little bit more insight. So when we do this together, then I get to learn a lot more about why you're even going about this the way you are. And what happens sometimes when people hear what's going on for other people in this way is that there's an aha. Oh, wow. I hadn't even thought about that. Well, now that makes a lot of sense. I think I'll modify myself instead of asking you to modify yourself. And that's what comes from collaboration, communication, connection, um, having approached things with the idea that nobody's doing anything on purpose to get in your way or to irritate you or to affect your ability to be conscientious and good at your job. It just happens. Things just happen. And so when we collaborate like this and have a communication and a conflict resolution, then whatever ideas you come up with, which I'm also on board with, then it's easier for us to implement because it was your idea to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. And Katherine, one more question about communication before I get into the whole parenting aspect of it. Catherine was born with cerebral palsy, and I found out at the age of 9 that I wouldn't be able to walk for the duration of my life without assistance because of the severity of my cerebral palsy. And I have had support staff of people that have helped me get through life, all of my life. And I have a unique perspective on inclusive communication. And I wanted to ask you about inclusive communication and folks with disabilities in the workforce and how they can help improve both organizational culture and communication if you hire folks with disabilities. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Well, I'm really glad you're bringing it up because I think that we can't know what anybody needs. Whether you have cerebral palsy or you don't, you could also have hidden disabilities, which is often a case in the workplace, is that there's a hidden disability that nobody even knows about unless we have a culture where people get to share. And there's an open mind that, gee, if I'd known more about you, I would have been so happy to alter our workplace in many different ways, not just structurally with potentially, some of the things that are now required by the American Disabilities Act, but in cultures where they don't have the American Disability Act, in cultures where, or even in our own culture, where there might even be a perspective or a consciousness that we don't even think about anybody but the able-bodied. So I believe that creating a culture of peace, creating a culture of support, creating a culture of inclusiveness creates a better environment for everybody. And that the assumptions that we go into our workplace with are, I don't know what I don't know, but I'd like to know more about absolutely everybody that's here. Because I think if we can share more about our lives, our expectations, our needs, the more support we naturally, instinctively want to give to one another. And it's interesting because I think there's been a fair amount of research done on creating environments in which people feel seen, heard, and understood.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do that, what happens is that there's a reciprocity. If I take time to see, hear, and understand you, then there's a pretty good chance you're going to take time to see, hear, and understand me. And the more that happens, the more supported we feel. And the more supported we feel, the more generous we are with our time and our energy and our support. So it's good for everybody.
Yeah, it's funny how a collaboration and inclusion go hand in hand, isn't it?
It's so true. Yeah, it's really exactly true. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And Catherine, I know that you are on a conscious parenting revolution where you're helping parents, educators, and executives, my friend, break unhealthy communication patterns. My friend, I know that you've been doing this for over 20 years now, and I know it's important for you to help people feel deeply connected through communication, my friend. So I'm curious, what first inspired you to create this revolution, and what makes you so fabulous with the work that you do, my friend?
You're so generous. Well, I was motivated to start having a better understanding of discipline myself when I started having children. And before that, it didn't really cross my mind that much. But when I became the parent, I became, really invested in my own parenting, of course, in my children. And then I started taking trainings in basically the types of parenting options that are out there to see what was real for me, what resonated with my heart, what resonated with my sense of things. And that's when I discovered that I wasn't really comfortable with power over parenting. And I'd grown up in a family where it was all about whoever had the power was the one that was accommodated. And if you didn't have the power, you had no voice. And this is a type of parenting that's still very popular. And so I guess as the child who experienced it, I had experienced my own sense of not feeling seen, heard, and understood from my perspective, or mattering that my perspective was important. It was really very much a do as you're told because I said so. And when I was in the position of the parent and I was starting to parent first our son and second our daughter, and then both of them, of course, together, I realized that didn't come out of my mouth without it feeling yucky. And I needed to figure out for myself anyway, how to create the interactions when I needed to have behaviors adjusted. And it became a revolution when I realized that one of the last marginalized communities that virtually nobody speaks about is children and their feelings and their needs. And I guess I began to just champion that because there was that little one in me that wished someone had been there to champion for me. And so as I got older and I started to have my own kids and I became invested in them having a voice and learning how to be considerate, not because of what would happen to them if they weren't considerate. In other words, what would happen with regard to rewards and punishments, but to teach consideration as a standalone. And when you slipped and fall and you weren't able to be considerate because maybe you were tired or you were hungry or you were both or you were exhausted or whatever the reason was that the child could no longer be considerate of other people, it's not all that different from adults whose bandwidth has been stretched thin and they're tired and exhausted and hungry and all the rest of it as well. And they can find it difficult to be considerate of other people's needs. So I guess it was just a really deep, heartfelt desire to be a voice for kids and help other adults who might have grown up with the perspective of children are to be seen and not heard, to do as they're told, that anything that comes out of their mouths is considered disrespectful, and that maybe there was a different way of looking at it. Maybe they were just trying to meet their needs and they didn't have the polish or experience to know how to say it in ways that were socially acceptable yet, and that it would be a greater gift to them to teach them the skills than to punish them for not having them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Catherine, I also wanted to talk to you about emotional connectedness through conversations and what it means to have a respectful conversation that's emotionally aware and has, because I believe the heartbeat of business and in life is human connected. And I also believe that you have to have some level of emotional awareness to be effective. So how do you think human connection, communication, and emotional awareness are interconnected, my friend?
They're so interconnected. I was in a car yesterday going to a meeting, and there was a street that was shut down. And so I just backed my truck up and I parked there thinking, oh, this is great. The street's shut down. There's plenty of parking. And I wasn't causing anyone any harm. And some guy came running up to me and he said, I've got dump trucks coming all day and they're going to be coming up and down the street. So I would like you to move. And I said, I'm running really late. I've got a 1 o'clock appointment, and there's no parking because you shut the street down. So I'm trying to figure out how to get to my appointment on time and not be in the way of your dump truck. And he said, well, there's only one perspective here, and it's mine. And I almost laughed because I spend my life teaching that everybody has a perspective and everybody's perspective is valid.
Yeah.
And he literally said, your perspective doesn't matter. And I laughed out loud and I moved my truck. And I thought to myself, wow, I feel like I'm invisible. Like it really was for this particular person. There was only one need in the room and it was his. And if there was any potential to problem solve, there wasn't a chance because he didn't care about my perspective. So talking about feelings and needs and emotional connection, if you can't create an atmosphere in which people feel safe to share, and psychological safety is not an imperative of your organization, then you're operating in a climate which will be very stressful.
Yeah.
And stress is going to get in the way of communication. It's going to get in the way of open sharing. It's going to get in the way. What's going to happen is when people don't feel that they can be transparent and share what's going on, it's not that they stop doing things. It's just that they stop telling you about them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that leads into my next question, because I know you help leaders as a TEDx speaker and a speaker, and the work you do through communications to become less transactional and more relational when it comes to effective communication. So I'm curious to ask you, what are the biggest mistakes you think people make when it comes to making communication transactional instead of relational, my friend, both at home and in the office? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, it's such a rich question. Thank you for asking it, Kevin. I'm sure you have some really great perspectives on this as well. The other day, my daughter, who's 26 going on 27, and she's she's close to getting her doctorate in clinical psychology. So she's a deep thinker in the land of human behavior and motivation. And she said to me, Mom, the reason I like hanging out with you and Dad so much is because you never make me feel like I have to. And so I thought to myself, wow, I am so glad that I never make you feel like you have to. And I think have to energy is the transactional energy. If you want to have me give you this thing or support you in this way, then I expect to see you at Sunday brunch. And it's a quid pro quo. And I might get the Sunday brunch attendance, but not with the feeling and not with the connection or the desire to be there. I'm going to get it with that chip of, well, I'm here because it's the only way I can meet my needs and get support from you. So I'm going to come because of that. So it takes a lot of trust to create the dynamics where it's not just transactional, but it's because I want to. And it's the best opportunity to create when people are choosing to be there because they chose it. Now, they might be getting compensated for it and all the rest of it, but they're there because I want to do this. I want to be here. This is interesting to me. And I feel appreciated and welcomed. Very different when it's just transactional. I do this to get paid, and in exchange for that, I may or may not do anything more than what is expected of me. But if I'm invested in our relationship, you might see that I end up staying later and doing more because I'm as concerned about this project as you are, even though you're the boss. Because I'm as invested, not because of the transactional relationship where I could have left hours ago, but because of the relationship I have with you and how invested I am in this. And so the above and beyond comes about when there isn't just a transactional relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also work with leaders how they communicate under pressure. So I'm curious to ask you about the practical tools you teach leaders to remain grounded, emotionally aware, and calm under pressure. Because no matter what position you hold in the world, we all have to communicate under pressure at some point in our lives. So, what's the key to communicating under pressure in your view, my friend?
Yeah, again, this is such a apt topic. The under pressure is handled better when people are handling the other parts of their lives as effectively as possible. So we talk about the under pressure time. And the under pressure time is the time when it's almost guaranteed that most blowups happen in that time. There are other times. There are the times when we're taking care of ourselves. And how well we do that gives many benefits to the time when we're under stress. The other time that we can manage well is the time we're cultivating relationship with the people, whether it's at home or at work, that people, our world. And so if we're spending time cultivating those relationships also, and we're spending time taking care of ourselves, then when we come under pressure and we're under a lot of stress, we're handling it better because we have that time that we set aside for whether it's meditation or contemplative prayer or whatever it is that you do to keep yourself grounded. So if you're keeping yourself grounded and you've got that practice and it's built into your life, you're going to handle pressure a lot better. If you've been really cultivating the relationship with your team and family, then when you're under pressure, they're going to be more considerate because of the relationship. So how we handle time, interactive time, how we handle personal development time, and how we handle self-care time all affect how we handle when we're under stress.
Yeah, absolutely. And Catherine, I know that your business journey started in the 1980s when you were studying Chinese in Hong Kong and closing, complex business dealings, my friend. So I'm curious if you can draw back to that portion of your life, how it helped you manage those manufacturing operations in China and what it taught you about effective communication. What do you remember fondly about that part of your life, my friend?
It's a great time in my life. Thank you for bringing it up. I learned a lot. We lived overseas for 35 years, so I spent a lot of time in China, in Hong Kong, in the Far East. And I'd gone to law school. I don't know if you knew that, but anyway, when I got into business in Asia, what I learned was that there's a word for it. It's called guanxi, and it means relationship. Houmen means the back door. And the relationships and the cultivating of relationships was more important than any contract I ever signed. People truly take care of the people that they've developed relationships with. And I thought to myself, they didn't teach me this in law school. We learned a lot about contracts and contractual relationships and things of that nature. And what I learned was that when I had invested in the relationship, and it's kind of famous, in Asia, there's a banquet, when you go into business with your colleagues, and, there's a lot, and we do that in the West as well. But what I noticed was that there is less of a litigiousness and less of a built out legal system in the Far East, other than Hong Kong, of course, where we had the really strong legal system that was brought by the British. And I appreciated both. I really do. I appreciate both. I love the fact that in a situation where someone is just blindly not honoring the contract or their word, that in places like Hong Kong, you can fall back on the legal system. But in places like China, what I needed to fall back on was the relationship. And people were either going to support or not support reaching an equitable situation because of the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And my friend, I know that you've also been trained in nonviolent communication and conflict resolution, and your journey eventually led you to mediation and the study of nonviolent communication. So I'm curious, when you're helping leaders through nonviolent communication and human connection, for people unfamiliar with the concept, well, why do you think this approach is so effective and successful? What do you think people need to know about non-violent communication and organizational culture?
Yeah. So NVC, I always want to acknowledge Marshall Rosenberg, who was the founder of the Center for Nonviolent Communication and who was a teacher of mine. And it's also the founder of restorative justice in the American prison system. And so it's restorative justice rather than repudiation, punitive justice. And we saw this with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa. Those are the principles. Gandhi, of course, was the father of nonviolent communication historically in Indian culture. It's a choice. Nonviolence is a choice. And in the foreword to Rosenberg's book, it was written by Gandhi's grandson. And he talks about, I went to go visit my famous grandfather, and he asked me, to start to record the examples of violence. And so it was fascinating to see all of the microaggressions, the ways in which we can be violent with each other and toward ourselves. Sometimes we find that we're our own worst critics and that we can be so unkind and violent towards self. So when we have the basis of an NVC, culture, the culture basically looks at all behavior as either the manifestation of needs being met. So if you feel like all your needs are being met, usually your demeanor is light and happy, and you can, easily show a smile to mankind and your neighbor or the person at the grocery store. And that comes forward because your needs are met. And so there's a direct link between how I feel and whether my needs are being met or unmet. So if my needs are not met, a whole bunch of other feelings arise. And then a lot of times from those feelings, also types of behavior come forward. So in NVC, we talk about the tragic expression of the unmet need. And the tragic expression of the unmet need, we see everywhere in society. And we see it in our families, we see it in our workplace, and we see it at large. And we can say, oh my God, that was an incredibly irresponsible action. And it's inappropriate. And it was, as far as I'm concerned, it's below my line of acceptance. And all of that can be true. And it can also be that behavior was the tragic expression of that person's unmet needs. And we either get stuck on just criticizing and seeing that somebody is not good at meeting their needs. And when they can't meet their needs, they fall apart, they drown, and they pull people down with them. And all of that is true. In this context, though, we have a way to look at that as the secondary problem. And it's a problem that needs to be solved, but it's not the primary issue. The primary issue is that there's a person drowning. And oh my God, let me go out in my little rowboat and pluck them out of the water before they drown, wrap a blanket around them, give them a cup of cocoa, and let them know they're not alone. And that we can help them and support them to meet their underlying needs. And this, of course, we could spend hours talking about the underlying needs. We could use Maslow, whose underlying needs are also a way for us to have a model to understand the progression of needs and how if you can't get food, air, water, or sleep, you're not thinking about whether or not you're going to reach enlightenment because you're still just trying to figure out where you're going to sleep that night. But as you meet your underlying needs, higher level needs begin to surface. In fact, we talked moments ago about psychological safety. So once your basic needs are met, that is the next need. The next need is to feel safe. And so if you're having trouble meeting that need, your needs for mastery don't even arise. So that's where having a model that NVC provides is so helpful. Because when you see behaviors that are unacceptable, you can move past good, bad, right, wrong, and have a different context for understanding them, and also have a different step that you can take in order to support another person who has difficulty meeting their needs. And they need to learn how to meet their needs. And I believe that we can support other people in being able to connect their feelings to their underlying needs being met or unmet. Because otherwise they say, I have this feeling because of this thing you did. Mm-hmm. And they go easily into victim blame consciousness. So it is the road out of victim blame consciousness. And it's a road into more accountability, and it's a road into more steps to meet one's needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And Catherine, I'm curious to get your thoughts on these findings from LinkedIn that reported this year that 49% of rising leaders lack effective conflict resolution and management skills, with 57% of leaders saying that, they suffer from leadership complacency, my friend. So I'm curious, what do those numbers tell you of the current state of leadership communication in high-level organizations, and how can we reverse that trend of leadership complacency, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
I didn't realize that number. I hadn't heard that. It's a really high number. It's a really high number. I'm sorry to hear about that. It doesn't surprise me. I run a training program, and every week I meet with a cohort of folks that are becoming more effective communicators. And what I find is that there's a generation that has not learned. I was part of the generation. I would say my kids are part of a different generation. I didn't grow up with a family that knew how to express their feelings without blaming them on someone else. So there was very little accountability. It was about, you did this thing and that was not nice and you make me feel. It was that context. And I can remember being really confused by it when I grew up, because it felt as though, well, that's not what I meant at all. And I didn't want that feeling to arise in you. I was just trying to do this other thing. And it wasn't even about trying to have that happen to you. But when we live in this idea of the victim blame consciousness, we do that. We blame the catalyst as if it's the cause of how we feel. Well, I think that one step of being able to shift blaming the catalyst and thinking it's the cause would change corporations. It would change dynamics in every scenario we can think of, as well as on the macro, not just the micro, but on the macro. I didn't learn that growing up. I learned that through my own self-investigation and my own curiosity and my own desire to bring about more depth and understanding within myself of why did those feelings arise, and is there a possibility that it's not someone else's fault? So no fault, no blame, no guilt, no shame. How do we get to that place of no fault, no blame, no guilt, no shame? I think we have to learn it ourselves. And then we have to teach our children, and then we see the transformation in society because we transformed and we found those ways to either generate a meditation practice or contemplative prayer or whatever it is, so that we could stay grounded and recognize that this is unfolding around me and I can observe what's happening without making it someone's fault. And there's a way of discussing this in meditation where it's considered the observer mind. And so when you can step into the observer mind, it's a higher sense of self that moves past just the skin envelope. So I guess, to wrap it up, what I would say is that it's not surprising. A lot of the parents that I get to coach didn't learn these skills. They are learning them now as adults. They're teaching their children these skills. So we will have a new generation of a lot of people who actually began to be curious themselves about their inner world because other people didn't teach them about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Catherine, I wanted to talk to you about leadership accountability. And, no matter how much you dot your I's and you cross your T's as an organizational leader, a parent, or just a regular person, you are going to fail. So I'm curious about your thoughts on how organizational leaders and parents can take accountability when they make mistakes, and how important it is for them to do that in order to gain credibility or psychological safety in the people that they've failed or let down. How important do you think leadership accountability is, my friend?
Oh, it's incredibly important in all of those venues that we can be accountable for not being perfect. And we can model for anybody around us, whether in the workplace or at home, that, you know what? I completely missed the mark on that. That was, I am the one responsible for this. I want to just let everybody know that this is on me. So being able to say that opens the door for other people to say that. It breaks out of the I have to be perfect all the time and into the world of, even though I thought I was going to get it right, I blew it. I blew it spectacularly. So when you can say that at home and you can say that at work, it gives people an opportunity to do the lessons learned. And then as a leader in an organization, by being the model of that accountability, then you can even say to your groups, let's look at this and see what happened. And maybe you guys can learn from my mistake and you won't have to go through it like I've done. And that is creating the atmosphere, which we talked about earlier, of psychological safety, where I feel safe to be able to say, I made a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. And, my next question has to do with the delegation of trust. As I mentioned earlier, I have a group of personal support workers that work for me. And one of the things I always tell myself is I allow them to do their job. And if they have questions after I told them what I need done, and then I step in and answer the question. But it's important to have, for me anyway, a delegation of trust, because it allows the people who work for me to have a sense of personal autonomy. And I'm curious to get your thoughts about the importance of the delegation of trust inside organizations and as parents. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, another great question. I feel like you're really good at this.
Well, thanks.
You brought up autonomy, and I talk a lot about autonomy because I believe that autonomy is something that we as adults value. We value our autonomy. We value our choice, and that it is one of our underlying needs. So when you have a situation where you have a lot of micromanaging, I think that it's very difficult for people in those circumstances who are subject to the micromanaging to be able to meet their needs for autonomy. I recently hired someone who said, the reason I want to work with you is because I'm tired of having my ideas not taken into consideration. So she wanted to make a contribution. and she was working in a situation in which there was no autonomy for her to make a contribution. Her job was to just do as she was told. And she was really, there was something in her that was yearning to be more creative. And so she was excited to join my team because I give people a lot of autonomy also, like you do. And I am kind of a beneficiary of that.
Mm-hmm.
I benefit so much by giving people the opportunity to run with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because giving them the opportunity to run with it also conveys, I trust you. And when you give people your trust, it's also reciprocal.
Mm.
They feel so happy about it, I'd say chuffed, that they were afforded a certain amount of grace that they could run with the ball, even though they may not have been able to demonstrate completely that they knew what to do with the ball. But I don't mind because I feel like the benefits are so great that I'm prepared to help out if it turns out we made a mistake. And there's a lot of, again, we're back to, there's a lot we get to learn from our mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't anticipate or expect you to be perfect. Autonomy is also something that is a need for children. However, I would say it's a need that is very much unmet because of this other problem that there's a negative view of children. So we haven't really talked about this or explored it, but one of the things that gets in the way of parents feeling as though that behavior was just a mistake is that there's a negative view of children. It's so deeply embedded in consciousness, we don't even see it. So when I talk about being like by choice, I want to be a voice for kids. I want to represent the community of kids that don't have an adult necessarily in their corner. And just be able to say, they're only ever trying to meet their needs, just like the rest of us. Now, they may go about meeting their needs in ways that are almost guaranteed not to, just like the rest of us. But it's not because they're out to get us. And it's not because they gave me these gray hairs. And it's not because of the fact that they're selfish. They're just trying to meet their needs, but they're young. And they may literally go about them, in kind of like learning how to walk in a way which is a little bit unstable. However, the more autonomy that we can give to a child, the greater sense of self they're going to have and agency they're going to have. Because we gave them a chance to fall. And we gave them a chance to believe in themselves. And you do that by not micromanaging.
Yeah, absolutely. And Catherine, I've got two questions left for you. And the first of those two questions is this. I'm curious to ask you about sustaining organizational unity. It goes beyond just, aligning values. It also aligns a sense of blind trust, as I like to call it, within organizations, because a unified vision, in my view, means that everyone's rowing in the same boat and they have a vested interest in the outcome, as you mentioned earlier, my friend. So how do you think we can sustain organizational unity, and what do you think it does for uplifting organizational culture?
Yeah, another really great question. I think that organizational unity, having, I guess, maybe a group discussion or the vision, right, of what we're here to do, the vision of what we're here to do. And I can remember that I think it's Lego. And I would just recommend, I don't have time to look it up for you, but I believe it was Lego who created this incredible vision. And, I'm a big Lego person, and our kids and the whole family, we love Lego. But it was that when you understand it from within a corporate culture, why we're here, and what we're here to do. It gives your community of support staff who are building your organization with you a reason to go to work in the morning beyond the job. It gives higher value to our purpose. And, in my organization, we talk about children are people too. And that we want to support kids to be seen, heard, and understood from their perspective. And so I think that the people who want to come and support that vision are drawn to the conscious parenting revolution. And that's true for all organizations. When you have that unifier, the people who are drawn to the purpose are going to be the ones who want your services and also want to be a part of creating your services.
Yeah, absolutely. And Catherine, I'm going to end our conversation by ending in how I end all of my podcasts, my friend. I am a person who believes that our legacies are built when we're clear on how we want to etch our fingerprints of difference into the sand, my friend. So under that context and sentiment, how do you want your personal and professional legacy to be defined?
I love that. Another great one. I would like to have it be defined around the principle of seeing past presenting problems, moving beyond the vision of the presenting problem needing to be the problem that we focus on, and focusing on the underlying, what's underneath it and behind it. So Marshall used to talk about giraffe ears and jackal ears. And the idea of a giraffe is that it's the largest hearted mammal, 75-pound heart. So if we can see through the heart at the actions and behaviors, we step outside of judgment. And Rumi said, I'll meet you in that field over there beyond right doing and wrongdoing. And that's the field that I want to cultivate. That's my legacy, is to figure out how to cultivate that field in a day-to-day experience for myself and the people that I get to interact with.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, my friend, tell me if people want to get connected with you or book you to speak or just want to start a conversation about having conversations. What's the best way they can do that?
Katherine Sellery, SELLERY.com. And then you can get to my landing page. And if you're looking for work-life balance and corporate training or speaking, you go to door number 1. And if you're looking for the conscious parenting revolution, you go to door number 2. So you can decide by just going to my landing page which door you're looking for on the corporate side, the speaking side, or the parenting side.
Well, fabulous, my friend. I could talk to you for 2 hours, but I will end
Easily.
our initial conversation there. And I want to thank you for the great work that you're doing to enhance the need to communicate better, my friend. It was a real delight to get to know you and engage in conversation. I want to thank you for being here and for the good work that you're doing. It's most appreciated.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It was so nice to meet you and to get to be on your podcast. And like I said, you've got a real gift for this.